The door opened at 1:58 a.m., and the laughter started before Bumpy Johnson even crossed the threshold. It wasn't loud laughter. Not the kind you hear at a party. It was the quiet, confident kind, men who already know how the night ends. 12 of them sat spread out through the back room of a downtown social club, coats still on, hats still on, hands close to their waists like habits they never had to think about. Hitmen. Not button men from the movies, real ones. The kind that didn't need to threaten you twice because they didn't plan on giving you a second chance. They'd been waiting for Bumpy to arrive with protection. With muscle. With Harlem behind him. Instead, he walked in alone. No gun on his hip. No shoulder holster printing through his suit. No men behind him. Just a dark overcoat, a fedora, and a face so calm it almost felt rude. The closest hitter, thin, sharp nose, eyes like broken glass, smirked and said, "That's it? Harlem sent you by yourself." Bumpy didn't answer the joke. He didn't defend himself. He stepped into the room like he'd been invited, took one slow look at all 12 faces, and then pulled a chair back with the sound of wood scraping against tile. He sat. That's when the laughter died. Because there's something unsettling about a man who walks into a room built to kill him and sits down like he's the host. One of the hitmen leaned forward. "You got heart, I'll give you that." Bumpy finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it traveled. "I didn't come here to be brave," he said. "I came here to be on time." The men exchanged glances. Confusion. A little irritation. That's what happens when a victim doesn't act like a victim. Bumpy looked at his watch. 1:59 a.m. Then he lifted his eyes back to them and said the line Harlem would repeat for years afterward, part fact, part Underworld legend, but always the same message. "You've got 6 minutes to make the smartest decision of your life." A heavy man near the back laughed once, like he couldn't help it. 6 minutes for what? Bumpy's expression didn't change. "For you to stop smirking," he said, "and start listening." In that moment, a question hung in the room thicker than cigarette smoke. Why would Bumpy Johnson show up unarmed? And what could possibly happen in 6 minutes that would make 12 killers ask him for a deal? To understand how a room full of hitmen ends up negotiating, you have to understand what Harlem meant in those years. Harlem wasn't just a neighborhood. It was an economy. A place where poor people's nickels and dimes, through the numbers game, turned into stacks of cash every weekend. Quiet money. Reliable money. The kind of money organized crime loves because it never stops moving. The downtown crews had been trying to get their hands around Harlem's numbers action for years. Sometimes they came with threats. Sometimes they came with offers. Sometimes they came with police pressure, hoping fear would do what violence couldn't. But Bumpy Johnson didn't run Harlem the way outsiders expected. He didn't rule on chaos alone. He ruled on relationships. He had the street captains, yes. But he also had the people nobody counted. A doorman who saw every stranger entering a building. A bartender who heard every careless confession. A shoeshine boy who watched expensive shoes step out of expensive cars. A dock worker who noticed which crates got handled like they were fragile, and which ones got handled like they were dangerous. That network meant one thing: Harlem saw trouble coming. So when a downtown crew decided they were done asking and ready to take, Bumpy didn't wait for the punch. He read the shoulder movement. The plan, according to whispers that later surfaced, was simple. A sit down. Neutral ground. A fake peace offer. A promise of a fair percentage and no bloodshed. They picked a back room in a downtown club where the walls were thick and the exits were few. They didn't invite Bumpy to negotiate. They invited him to die. And they sent 12 hitmen because they expected Bumpy to bring 10 men of his own. They wanted to be overwhelming. Final. No mistakes. But then Bumpy did the one thing nobody predicted. He came alone. That's what made them smirk. Because they assumed alone meant helpless. They didn't understand that Bumpy Johnson's most dangerous weapon wasn't a pistol. It was timing. And whatever he had planned was already in motion when he walked through that door. To him, Bumpy rested his forearms on the table, fingers interlocked, like a man about to explain something obvious to people who refused to see it. "I know why I'm here," he said. A hitter with a scar near his eyebrow grinned. "Do you?" Bumpy nodded slowly. You're here to collect Harlem. And if I don't hand it over, you're here to collect me. The scarred hitter leaned back, amused. Smart. Bumpy's gaze moved across the room. You're all smart. That's why you're still alive. But tonight, you're about to do something stupid. A few of them chuckled, but it wasn't the same laughter as before. It was thinner now. Less certain. One of them, older, calmer than the rest, asked, "What's the play, Johnson? You talking your way out?" Bumpy glanced at his watch again. 2:01 a.m. "I'm not talking my way out," he said. "I'm giving you a way out." That line landed wrong. The hitmen exchanged looks, confused, suspicious. Bumpy continued. "Every one of you has a gun on you. Every one of you thinks that's the power in this room." He paused. "But power isn't what you're holding. Power is what's already waiting outside." The scarred hitter's smile faded. "You got cops coming?" Bumpy didn't answer immediately. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small folded card, set it on the table, and slid it forward. It wasn't a badge. It wasn't a weapon. It was a piece of paper with one line typed on it. "Federal raid authorized, 2:05 a.m. The room stilled. Someone scoffed, but the scoff sounded forced. That could be anything. Bumpy leaned back slightly. "It could be," he agreed. "If I was a man who needed to bluff." Then he said quietly, "I'm not bluffing." 2:02 a.m. The older hitter narrowed his eyes. "If a raid is coming, why are you here?" Bumpy's answer was immediate. "Because you're not the only ones with a plan," he said. "And mine ends with me walking out alive." A man near the door shifted his weight, eyes drifting toward the hallway like his body was already preparing to move. Bumpy noticed. "You're thinking about leaving," he said, calm. The man snapped back, defensive. "No, I'm not." Bumpy nodded. "You should be." The scarred hitter's voice hardened. "If cops are coming, why don't we just kill you now and leave?" Bumpy's eyes lifted to him, steady and cold. "Because you won't leave," Bumpy said. Silence. Bumpy continued, tone almost conversational. "You came in pairs. 2 cars. One out back. One out front. A driver in each. That's how you do clean work." One man's jaw tightened. "Just slightly." Bumpy kept going. "You didn't notice the tow truck on the corner when you arrived. You didn't notice the man fixing a light pole. You didn't notice the janitor mopping the hallway even though the club is closed." He tapped the table once. "Those weren't workers." The room felt colder. 2:03 a.m. Bumpy reached into his inner coat pocket and pulled out a stack of envelopes, 12 of them. He set them down carefully, like they were fragile. Each envelope had a name on it. Not nicknames. Real names. Then, something that hit harder than names. Addresses. And underneath the addresses, one more line per envelope. Probable cause. Illegal firearms/federal transportation. The hitmen stared. The older one spoke first, voice tight. "Where did you get those?" Bumpy's answer was simple. "From people you didn't think mattered." He slid one envelope toward the scarred hitter. "Open it," Bumpy said. The scarred hitter hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a photograph. Earlier that night. Stepping out of his car. Coat open just enough to show the grip of a pistol. Clear as day. His face changed. Bumpy watched him absorb it, then said the sentence that shifted the room from murder to math. "If you shoot me," Bumpy said, "you don't just kill a man. You light up a case." 2:04 a.m. A hitter near the back hissed. "So what, you're working with the feds now?" Bumpy's eyes narrowed slightly. "No," he said. "I'm working with reality." He leaned forward. "You think the people who sent you here care about whether you make it home? You think you're protected because you're useful?" Bumpy shook his head once. "Useful men get spent." The older hitter's expression tightened. "You're saying this is a setup?" Bumpy nodded. "For me, but also for you." That landed like a punch. Because the only thing more dangerous than being trapped is realizing you were invited into the trap. Bumpy looked at his watch again. 2:05 a.m. Right on time, faintly, distant, but unmistakable, sirens began to rise. Not close yet, but coming. The hitmen looked at each other. You could see it, the calculation, the instinct, the sudden fear of paperwork and prison that even killers respect. One of them muttered, "We need to move." The scarred hitter snapped, "Shut up." Bumpy held up a hand, not to command them, just to keep them from panicking into something stupid. "Here are your options," Bumpy said. Option 1. You stay, you do what you came to do, and you spend the rest of your life explaining it in a courtroom while men who promise to protect you pretend they've never heard your names. Option 2. You walk out alive. The older hitter exhaled slowly. "How?" Bumpy's voice stayed steady. "You leave your guns here." The room reacted instantly, anger, disbelief. "We're not leaving unarmed," someone barked. Bumpy didn't flinch. "You already are," he said. They froze. Bumpy nodded toward the floor. "This building has 2 exits you can use that won't put you in front of the first wave. The back hallway and the service stairwell." He leaned in. "Both are being watched. Not by police. By my people." The scarred hitter's eyes narrowed. "You came unarmed but you got men outside?" Bumpy's answer was calm. "I came unarmed so you'd laugh. So you'd underestimate the clock." 2:06 a.m. The sirens grew louder. A man at the far end of the room swallowed hard and asked the question everyone was now thinking. "What do you want?" Bumpy let the silence sit for half a second, then gave them terms that sounded simple but carried weight. "You go back downtown," Bumpy said. "You tell your boss Harlem isn't for sale. You tell him the next time he tries a sit-down like this, I won't bring a clock. I'll bring funerals." The older hitter stared at him. "That's it? A message?" Bumpy shook his head. "Not just a message." He tapped the stack of envelopes. "These stay with me," Bumpy said, "unless your boss agrees to a deal." The scarred hitter's voice sharpened. "What deal?" Bumpy's eyes hardened. "You stay out of Harlem," he said. "No collectors. No pressure. No tax. No kidnapping my runners, no leaning on my storefronts, no sending strange cars up Lenox." He paused. "You stay in your lane, and these envelopes disappear." A hitter scoffed, but it sounded weak now. "You expect us to take that back?" Bumpy's reply came like a blade sliding out of a sleeve. "You're not taking it back," he said. "You're surviving it back." 2:07 a.m. The older hitter stared at Bumpy for a long moment, then finally nodded once. Small motion, big meaning. "All right," he said. "We'll talk." That was the exact moment the title promises. 12 hitmen weren't laughing anymore. They were asking for a deal. Bumpy stood up slowly. "Good," he said. "Because I don't have time to negotiate with men who don't understand leverage." He gestured toward the service hallway. 2 at a time. No running. No hero moves. Leave your guns. A few of them hesitated. Bumpy's voice dropped, colder. "If you don't trust me," he said, "stay right here and explain it to the feds." That did it. One by one, they placed their weapons on the table, some gently, some with anger, all with the same realization. Tonight wasn't their win. They filed out. As the last pair moved toward the hallway, the scarred hitter stopped and looked back at Bumpy. "You really came in here alone," he said, disbelief in his voice. Bumpy met his eyes. "I didn't come alone," Bumpy said. "I came with Harlem." By morning, the story moved through New York the way real Underworld stories move, quietly, quickly, and with enough fear attached that nobody laughed while telling it. People said 12 downtown hitmen waited in a room to kill Bumpy Johnson. People said Bumpy walked in with no gun. People said they laughed. Then they stopped laughing. Then they left without firing a shot. Whether every detail happened exactly as Harlem tells it doesn't change the part that mattered most. Bumpy proved that night that the most dangerous man isn't the one with the biggest weapon. It's the one who controls the moment. The raid hit the club minutes later. Doors kicked. Flashlights. Shouting. But the hitmen were gone. All that was left was a table with a pile of abandoned guns and a room full of men wondering how Bumpy Johnson had walked through death like it was a hallway. Downtown, the crew that sent them got the message. They could keep trying to take Harlem by force. Or they could accept the truth Bumpy had turned into a rule. You don't ambush a man who already knows the time. You don't threaten a neighborhood that sees you coming. And you don't laugh at Bumpy Johnson for showing up alone, because if he's alone, it means the trap isn't behind him. It's already around you. If this story changed how you think about power, hit the like button. Subscribe for more Harlem Underworld stories told like this, cinematic, tense, and built on the rules the history books don't explain. And drop a comment. If you were one of those 12, would you have taken the deal, or tried your luck anyway?